Hello and welcome to CyberWise, Cyber Savvy Made Simple, the podcast on the road to demystify the world of cybersecurity and keep you safe online. We're your hosts, Dan and Esteffan. Dan, it's been a while since we've done a podcast, so I just wanted to start by saying happy 2024. Hope it's a great year.
Yeah, it's been a while. We had some time off for the holidays, some well deserved leave. But yeah, good to be back in it, and good to be getting back into the podcasting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to just wish everyone listening a successful 2024. And we're quite excited to be announcing a new series. Dan, do you maybe just want to touch on the new series we're going to get started in this episode?
Yeah, so what we've done in the past, our content that we've done and the videos we push out and our e-learning content that we have at Goldfish has been around sort of big subjects and big topics, and a lot of the time, while we try and keep the learning as tight and short and consumable as possible, there's a lot of information, and when we're looking at something like passwords, we're looking at something like safe browsing. There's a lot of learning to come from it. There's so much action points. There's a lot of behaviors that we're talking about, and a lot of time that can be quite overwhelming. So what we've tried to do is really slim that down and get that even tighter, and start producing content where we're looking at just a single behavior, a single action, and then design a whole series of those where our viewers and our audience and the learners online can really just take it in super bite-sized chunks and look at a single behavior at a time, and maybe just take a whole week to take that in and understand that and actually implement that in their online lives and on their devices or at home or wherever it is, depending on the behaviors. So we've tried to build a list of 52 behaviors, which fits nicely into trying to apply sort of one critical cybersecurity behavior per week of the year, and sort of build that up over time. And hopefully by the end of the year, somebody's an absolute cyber ninja if they follow all of these behaviors. And we've done it that way. And so this will be basically the start of that journey, to really try to break it up into the most bite-sized, consumable, actionable content possible. That where we've called it our 52 cyber savvy behaviors.
100%, Dan. And yeah, I think let's dive straight into numero uno. We're going to be chatting about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. So yeah, let's maybe start right at the beginning. Let's pretend we don't know what MFA is. Do you mind just quickly giving us an explanation of what it is?
I reckon personally, this is probably one of the most important cybersecurity behaviors out there now, that everybody should be taking super seriously. In the past, they started referring to it as two-factor authentication, or 2FA, but it's now progressed into a multi-factor authentication, or MFA. So anybody looking to do that, a lot of the time people interchange and use both terms freely, but actually, the multi-factor authentication is the stronger one now, and which a lot of people are then recommending. So MFA, it adds an extra layer of security beyond just your password. So this is all about authentication. It's about getting into your devices. It's about getting into your online accounts, and this just adds that extra layer over and above your password. So it typically requires a second or a third form of verification, sometimes in a text message or an SMS, sometimes from an authenticator app code, or sometimes from a biometric check as well. So the methods usually fall into three categories. Something So firstly, your first method is your password, something that something that you have is the second category, something you have, like your phone, and you can have an app on the phone that produces it, or it can be a security key that you plug in, and that security key will give you an additional code. And then finally, something that you are. So maybe it's a voice recognition, maybe it's biometrics, your eye scan or your thumbprint and something like that. So it's all three categories, and those are the multi-factors for authentication.
Got you, Dan. So just a practical example of this, probably when you try log in onto your banking app and it requires facial recognition, would this be a method of MFA?
Yeah, it would be, as long as it's something in addition to the password. So, a lot of the time now your banking apps will, ask for a code that they've maybe sent you by SMS, which is not the best, but we'll get into that. Or it's you need to open up the app for your banking on your phone and press a button to authorize you allowing to get into that. So it's no longer are we just putting in a username and just putting in a password and then we're into our online accounts. There is a second form or maybe even a third form of authentication that we need to go through now.
And then what are the security risks if MFA is not implemented?
So what MFA is trying to solve is the problem where your password is stolen. And there's loads of different ways that your password can be stolen. You can give your password away to cyber criminals through phishing, really, really easily. It happens every single day. Millions of people do it. They get tricked into giving over their password. Once that password is now in somebody else's hands, it's a huge risk to you. Your password can be stored on another website or another app or an online account somewhere, and that account can get hacked by the cyber criminals. They then have that entire database. If it wasn't correctly stored, they'll then have an entire database of username and passwords. And then they can take your password, whether they've got it from phishing, whether they have acquired it from a hacked site, or whether they just brute force into an account because you've got a really simple, shitty password. They can get in. If all they need to do is get past that first step of password, it's really easy. And there's many different ways that they can do it. And then they're into your online life and can cause absolute mayhem, lose a ton, cause absolute pandemonium. It's a nightmare. So with multi-factor authentication, even if somebody has your password, even if they guess your shitty password or they convince you to give them over their password, without that second code that you're now needing to put in, without that facial recognition you're needing to put in, without that thumbprint, without the Authenticator app giving you that code, there's no way that they can get in to your account. So that's the risk that it's basically solving.
And let's say you recognize the risk. You don't have a strong password. You've been duplicating or recycling your passwords. Now you've gone through the whole exercise of changing all your passwords, and now you recognize the risk. You don't have a strong password. You've been duplicating or recycling your passwords. Now you've gone through the whole exercise of changing all your passwords, and now you see the value in implementing MFA. What are the steps in doing so?
Cool. So 4 different ways, 4 different places that we can be implementing it. So firstly, on your smartphone, dive into the settings, whether you're on Apple or Android, there'll be built-in MFA options for your device and then any linked accounts that you have for them, activate them and get cracking there. Your social media, whether you're old school Facebook, on Instagram or on any of the other apps out there, and your email account, whoever you're using, all of them love MFA. So, get into the security settings, make sure that it's turned on, and get going like that. And, you'll have options like text codes or SMS codes. You'll have options like Authenticator apps, or even physical security keys if you want to go full ninja. So those are all available for email and social media. And then really importantly is your online banking and online shopping. If you really want to be security savvy and make sure that you're protected, be sure that your bank and major online all the online retailers, that they all support MFA. Make sure it's turned on, make sure you're using it, set it up properly, and then just know that you're going to be able to bank online safer because you're going through the proper steps. And then finally, your work accounts. Any accounts that you're working on, any online accounts that you're using, any apps you're using for work, it should be super important that there is MFA in place, especially if you're dealing with sensitive information, if you're receiving emails, if you're doing any sort of sensitive work. If you don't have it, get onto your IT department, talk to your manager, make sure that is set up and that you can go through the steps then to double secure those accounts there.
And obviously, not all MFA methods are equally as strong. For example, having a SMS-based code sent to you versus like a Authenticator app. Which would you recommend to be the strongest, or what do you use specifically?
I use an authenticator app. I actually use Authy. It's really nice. I can, it's available on my phone. It's available on desktop. Very easy to set up for each of my accounts. And anywhere that I go, I can, very quickly get a code that counts down in 60 seconds. It changes a code. So it's really good. The problem with your SMS codes, your text codes is, particularly in South Africa, one of the big sort of hacks, one of the attacks that cyber criminals will use here is your SIM swap fraud, where somebody will duplicate your SIM card, and they'll convince the phone company that you are you, and they need to now transfer your number onto a different SIM. So now they try and get into your banking, and when your bank app sends that authentication code to your phone, the cyber criminals will actually receive that on the new SIM card, and so that's a way for them to get around this multi-factor authentication using text-based or SMS-based code. So that's very old school. A lot of companies, unfortunately, are still doing it, and you have to put up with it. But just be aware of that SIM swap fraud as well. But yeah, I mean, the authenticator apps are brilliant now. A lot of the more advanced apps now, maybe your banking, a lot of the banking guys are doing it. They've got built-in authentication into their apps. So if you're trying to buy something with your card, or you're trying to get into an account, they'll send a code, or they'll send a pop-up to your mobile phone, and you'll have to click on that yes, this is me, and you're in there. So there are different methods, but just being aware that it's important, and not fighting against it. A lot of people are like, it's way too much effort, it's way too much work. I don't want to go through this extra step because it's a pain in the ass. Getting hacked and having your online world absolutely sucks, and will take you weeks and weeks of drama putting your life back together, than a simple setup of MFA on your devices and on your online account. So yeah, it's a really important one, Es.
Cool, Dan. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's all we have time for today. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, Dan. Just wanted to say well done to everyone listening. You're on the road to becoming a more cyber savvy person. Only 51 more ways to go, then we're done. But have a great day further, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, Dan.
Shot, Es. See you later, mate.